Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks a lot for checking today's video out. Today I'm going to give you guys a seminar on everything you need to know about wacky rigging, wacky rig setups. We are getting into the prime time for wacky rigging probably over the next few weeks, so this is something you definitely want to incorporate in your arsenal. And if you don't know much about it, this will be a good foundation. And if you guys do wacky rig a lot, maybe you learned something here that you've never seen before. So I think it'll be pretty informative little video. Real quick, guys, before we get started, just want a couple different housekeeping tips here, or dreaded housekeeping tips. I just want to remind everybody, if you guys are looking to buy any type of tackle, boats, motors, anything like that, please check out Boat Works and Bait Works here in Springfield, Missouri. You guys know I've been working with them. I'll include the link in the description. You guys can check out all their online products, just the greatest tackle store, boat store in the world. And also you can get the Blocked Old School jig there exclusively through Bait Works, so much appreciated with that. Okay guys, let's get into wacky rigging a little bit here. Now man, the wacky rigging is definitely, I'm going to put it on like one of the top 5 ways to catch bass, period. It's like, it is a deadly technique. It's absolutely deadly for catching fish. And if you're not familiar with it, or if you are, it's just a simple setup where you got a soft stick bait or a straight-tailed worm hooked right in the middle, wacky style like that. And we're going to get into, some different stuff, how to set it up, where to fish it at, and some little, tricks and tweaks that'll help out. So first of all, I want to show you the first thing we do. You guys are familiar with this that have the channel, that have watched the channel. If you're not, you guys, probably enjoy this tip here. But take a look at the way this setup looks right here as far as this wacky rig. This is just straight out of the box. This is a Zoom's Linky. The first thing that I do is I'm going to take it out and I'm going to rough it up like this. And what I do with this right here, the reason you want to rough it up is it breaks the salt up in it, and it makes the bait a little bit more pliable, a little bit more soft, gives it better action. But the main thing about it is I like the way that what it does to the color. It gives the bait a little bit different color than a factory color. I think it makes it a little bit more natural looking. So that's the first thing I do. Then I come through and I'll hook it right in the middle like that. Now another thing, guys, is you see a lot of people that use the little O-rings and the little collars where they put the collar over the worm and hook it in like that. I do not like to do that, guys. There's several different reasons. Number one, I think it acts as a strike deterrent. It's just another visual that the fish can key in on, because the fish get really close to this bait, and it's a good clear water bait, so they can study that. It doesn't look real. And I think you get better hookups and better action. With a hook like this, the bait will fall straight down like that. And, as soon as that fish hits it, you got an exposed hook to get them in. And as that worm is falling down like that, the tails just sort of wiggle down like that as they're going down. This is what makes it so attractive. So this is the way that I like to set it up like that. Now, the hooks are pretty important too. The ones I prefer are the Gamakatsu G Finesse straight shank worm hooks. It's a light wire nano hook. It works really good in that. I usually use a 1/0 for a soft plastic stick bait, and then on a worm like the trick worm, so I'll use a little bit smaller one, like a number 1 like that, little smaller hook. So let's get into the worms exactly, as far as the different styles and colors of worms you want to, before we get into the technique. This is my main setup, guys, here. My favorite is like the Zlinky, 1/0 hook in there, straight setup like this, with either some type of a watermelon or a green pumpkin color. It's my favorite color setup. I've caught tons of fish on it like this. It's really good in water visibilities that are, anywhere between, say, 3 foot greater. This is the good setup for that. And it works in a wide range of different, environmental conditions. Now, if the water happens to be a little bit more off-colored, like if the water visibility is under 2 foot, that's when I'll go to a darker color, like this, blueberry or black or a plum or something like that. The darker color will still silhouette a little bit more in that off-colored water, and definitely get you a few more bites. So I use the darker colors like this. Say, for example, if I'm pitching it around cypress trees or around docks where you have water visibility that is less than 2 foot. I get a lot more bites with the darker colors, but those are my two primary ones, are the green pumpkins and the dark ones. Now, that is with the soft plastic stick bait like the Zlinky or the Cinco. Now, the other setup that I use with it is a Zoom trick worm. Now, this is a lot smaller diameter, as you can see, than the Zlinky. Now, this gives a lot more finesse approach. So if I'm fishing like super clear water and water that's very shallow, this is when I use the trick worm, because the trick worm does not have the salt in it. It doesn't have the bulk to it. So it falls a lot slower. So the trick worm is actually going to fall almost twice as slow as like a Cinco or a Zlinky. So if I'm fishing water depths like say less than 4 feet, less than 3 feet, real clear water, specifically when the fish are spawning, I really like the trick worm. It's just a lot more subtle. It gets a lot more bites. It'll also get more bites on those brighter days where you don't have much wind. Just any situation where the fish are really spooky. But if I'm fishing, say the wind's blowing a little bit, or it's cloudy, or if I feel like I want to get that bait down deeper than 2 or 3 feet, that's when I'm going to the soft plastic stick bait like this. Most of the time I'm throwing it on 8-pound test, Seaguar and Vizex line, the Megabass Orochi whip snake spinning rod, and that's the setup you want to use for it. Now, before we get into where you want to fish it, let's talk a little bit about the hook set on it. One of the big keys on catching fish with a Wacky rig is setting the hook right, because normally this is what's going to happen is like you're going to make your cast out there, and it's like as soon as I get the cast, one of the first things I do, guys, is I twitch it like that across the surface for about this far. Now, what happens a lot of times is like if you throw that Wacky rig out there to the bank and you twitch it across the surface, or maybe just that far under the surface, it will bring bass in to investigate what that motion and that noise is. And then after and a lot of times they hit it when you're going like that. A lot of times they'll come up and grab it off the surface. A lot of times, especially in April and May. But normally I'll do that for 3 or 4 feet, and then I'll let the bait sink down. And I don't want to do anything. I don't put any action on it. I let it fall, just wiggle on the way down like that. Normally what happens, if there's a fish around there, half of the time they're going to hit it before it gets to the bottom, and the other half they're going to hit it as soon as it gets to the bottom and as soon as you lift up on it. I'm going to guess 90% of the bites that you're going to get on a Wacky is when, that as soon as that bait, enters the water to where it hits the bottom and you lift it up one time. If I work it over 4 or 5 feet without a bite, I usually reel it in and make another cast. Now, when you do get a bite, what's going to happen on there is all of a sudden your line's just going to get tight, and it's going to start moving. Your line's going to get tight, and it's just going to start moving in one direction like that. There's very seldom any other type of a bite. It's just almost like you're catfishing with a chunk of liver, and a catfish picks it up and starts moving it out. When you get that bite on a Wacky rig, don't get in a big hurry, because they're not going to drop it. Let them swim a couple feet with it, and then don't just set the hook like that. When you feel that fish moving with it, reel down on it, take up the slack, and just pull back in it while you reel at the same time. Don't like set the hook and then start reeling. Just start reeling and pulling back at the same time, and keep reeling. As soon as you feel that rod tip load up with that fish, just keep reeling and keep reeling. Get the fish to the boat as fast as you can, and then once the fish turns direction, then you can start, easing off, fighting the fish in whichever direction it's going to go. But that's the worm setup and how you want to do it. Now, the areas you want to fish this in, a lot of it depends on the type of lake you're fishing in. I mean, most of the time, a Wacky rig is going to be a springtime lure. You're going to catch more bass on it when the water is, say, like between 55 and 70 degrees, which is going to be sometime in March up until May. That's the prime time for a Wacky rig. To me, it's all about spawning areas. So wherever the fish spawn in your lake, if you're up north on a big smallmouth flat, they may spawn up there. If you're fishing Ozark impoundment like I do here, they're going to be back in the back part of the coves. If you're fishing a grass lake, they could be on a grass flat, or some type of a cove that has grass in it. But regardless, you want to fish this in spawning areas. And just because you're fishing it in spawning areas doesn't mean you're catching spawning fish. These fish are going to be up in these areas, in 3 different stages. You're going to have some fish that are cruising up in those areas looking for beds, you know, males and females both looking for areas to make beds. You may have some fish that are actually spawning or in the process of building beds. And then you're going to have some post spawners, some fish that are done spawning, they stay around, they're garden fry, they're feeding up after they get done spawning. So you got a pretty good window as far as how long this works. Normally it's going to be really good for like a month or so in whatever lake that you fish. Main thing is you want to fish shallow water, and you want to fish flatter banks. The Wacky rig is all about flat banks to me, you know, being subtle, you know, trying to keep that bait in and around where you think those areas, those fish are getting ready to spawning or just got done spawning. Another thing that you can do with the Wacky rig is you can put it on a weedless hook, and you can skip it and pitch it in around a little bit heavier cover, like skip it underneath boat docks. You can skip it underneath, you know, overhanging trees, cypress trees, stuff like that. So if you're fishing around some type of snaggy cover, use a weedless hook. But other than that, I prefer just the open hook setup on it like that. So anyway, guys, just a few tips for the Wacky rig. Like I said, it's super fun bait to fish. It's one of there's probably not a better bait out there that will get you the number of bites and quality bites a Wacky rig. It catches a lot of fish, and it catches a lot of big fish. You know, the biggest fish in the lake will hit it, and you know, 1-pounders will hit it too. So just a lot of different sizes and numbers of fish will hit it. So give it a try this spring, guys. I think you guys will really enjoy it. So we'll talk later. See you.